Hi, it's time for a Chime video. All the best things always start off with a good story. So let's do a story first and then we'll talk about what this is all about. So back in March of this year, I had the opportunity to repair a customer's NuTone LB42 door chime. It's from the early 1970s. Her name's Lucy and she lives in Pennsylvania. I repaired the door chime base. It was in average condition for what it was. Sent it back to her and she reinstalled it and it worked correctly. However, and an LB42 is a 4-tube 8-note door chime. One of the problems that she had was, like chimes made in that era, the tubes, instead of being hung on some kind of cord, NuTone started to use these little plastic hangers that would lock into the slot in the plug end of the tube. So there's a little molded nylon hanger, and it would go into the slot and it would be turned to key it in, and then it would hang on the hanger arm of the chime base, and there you go, all set. And I'm pretty sure that was done because it was faster and easier than having somebody sit there and tie cords onto the end of every tube when the tubes were manufactured. And they started using those, as near as I can tell, it was sometime probably in the late 1960s, maybe 69, could have been 70. It's hard to know exactly because not everything is introduced all at one time on a specific date. So in Lucy's case, one of her tubes, the number 1 tube, had a broken hanger. And she asked me about what to do about that, and we do have a video that shows a fairly simple workaround for that because the little nylon tube hangers are not available. They haven't been available to buy from NuTone in probably more than 15 or 18 years. And it's not the kind of thing that you would usually have hanging around at the shop waiting for somebody to ask for one. You just order them when you need them and so forth. So I didn't have one. So I sent her an email with a link to the video about the workaround, and I will put a pop-up thing up here so you can go see that if you want to. Lucy has a son. His name is Nicholas. And Nicholas, by all accounts, seemed to be a very clever boy. And Nicholas is a clever boy who also has a 3D printer. So Nicholas decided that I could make a new hanger for our chime. And he did. And it worked. This was months and months later. I believe she contacted me about the hanger that he made. I think she asked me if I would be interested, or maybe I told her I would be interested if he can get it figured out. It's something that we could actually use because we do get a fair number of calls from people with broken hangers because two things happen. The original hangers, the nylon gets old and gets brittle over time. Sometimes people take tubes down, they lean them up against the wall and they roll across the wall and hit the floor and the hanger will break. Or, the grandkids come over and they're running around the house like maniacs and they crash into the tubes and they go bang, 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 and the hangers break. I expressed interest in Nicholas's hanger design. I think he was excited about the whole idea. We'll put these aside for a minute and let's take a look at the genesis of Nicholas's tube hangers. These are the very first ones that he sent me. And I'm going to sort these out here real quick. That one, that one, that one, that one, and those. Those are all intact. Those are all broken. I don't remember exactly because it's been more than a month ago now. But Nicholas made these and his mom put them in a bubble wrap envelope and mailed them to me. When I got them, probably most of these, I don't remember exactly how many, were broken and the rest of them were okay. That was kind of surprising because you wouldn't think something like this would break in the mail. However, the problem with these is actually, this one's actually broken also. And this one of the little ears is broken off also. Some of these I actually broke. These 4 seem to be intact. Problem with these are the type of material that he used to make them is far too brittle and they simply snap in half. They break very easily. And that's not really going to work out because they can't break. They have to be strong and sturdy like the original ones were when they were new. Now, that being said, let's take a quick look at this as a design. From a design point of view, Nicholas has done an excellent job of not only reproducing the fundamental design of the original hangers, but in some ways he's made them better. This little block on the bottom is correct. It has these two little supporting ears. This is the part that goes into the tube and twists to lock it in place. Actually, the whole thing twists, but this is the part that locks it in place. These little ears that stick out are what sit on top of the tube plug, and then you have a square block here, which is what you need so you can reach in there when you go to install this in the top of the tube. You need something that you can put your needle nose pliers on and turn so it locks it in place. And then you have this portion here, which is the correct length, so it hangs correctly on the chime. And the thing that he did, which was very nice, was he created this very nice sort of elegant oval shape here at the top with this oval shaped slot in the middle of it, and this is the part that fits over the hanger arm on the chime base. This is actually done much nicer than what the original ones were. The original ones, they were more just of a basic rectangular shape, and they had sort of a rectangular slot in them. If I recall correctly, the slot was not very generous in size, which is a nice way to say it was a little on the small side, and sometimes it would be difficult to get it onto the hanger arm easily and quickly. This is a much better design, I think. So he did a very good job of improving what NuTone came up with originally. After I got these and I evaluated them, which it didn't take very long since most of them were broken when I got them, or a lot of them were broken, I sent them an email, Lucy and Nicholas, and explained the problem with these and sent some pictures. What he thinks may have happened is, in general, this may not be the right material for this type of item. And also, apparently after these are 3D printed, then he takes them out of the printer and they have to go into a UV light box, which the UV light cures the plastic. And it could have been that they were in the UV light box too long, or it could also be, there was a little confusion about this, it could be that they were put in the UV box twice, which would have overexposed them, and UV light can make plastic more brittle. However, regardless of what all that was about, these weren't going to work, and he had an idea of a different way to do it with a different material that would be better. A short time after that email, another package came in the mail, and they were mailed the same way. They were in a soft pack envelope like that, and this is version number 2. And version number 2 is made out of a different type of plastic material for 3D printers. They are essentially the same design, but an entirely different type of material. And this type of material, and hopefully this will behave itself and won't make me look silly. If I take these, if you remember what I did to the first ones I bent them and they snapped right in half and shot across the shop. And this one, I can actually take it and bend it and bend it and bend it, and that was a pretty good bend until it finally broke. Let's do that one more time because these are prototypes, so we can play with them. There I have it bent that much, which is quite a bit, and then that much, and then that much, and more, and more, and right about there, if I hold it, if I look right here in the plastic, right here on the apex of the bend, you can see that the gray material is starting to turn more whitish in color because of the stress put on it by bending it. And now I've got it bent. This is more, so this is about 90 degrees right there. And this is more than 90, and we're rapidly approaching 45 degrees. And you can see the stress build up here, at least I can see it. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's bent a lot. And it doesn't break. It's a much more flexible material, which is excellent. And if we let go of it, it kind of holds its shape, but you can watch as it very slowly wants to return. It returned back to 90 degrees, and I think if we very carefully support the apex here and bend it back, we can straighten it back out, and it's perfectly good. this is a very good choice of material because it is very flexible. You have to realize that nobody should be intentionally bending these as much as I just did. They have to just hang there. I'm pretty certain that if you mount these on a tube and then roll it across the wall and let it fall on the floor 50 times, I don't think this is going to break. Are we going to do that? Yeah, maybe. Not in this video, maybe in another video, but we have to do stress tests. Stress test is important because, you know, there's one thing about designing something like this and having it here in the shop, and we have knowledge about the product and all these other sort of things, so we think we understand it all, and that's all well and good, but the real test for anything is what happens to it when you let it out into the real world and the general public gets its hands on it, because then all bets are off. You don't know what's going to happen, but initially I would say this is very good. Now, one of the things about these though was that while this is all very good and it's the same design as the original one, I had some concerns about these little locking ears on either side of the square part of the hanger. If you look at one of these, if you put stress on this, and I'm just using my finger, and you push on it, it's pretty strong, but if you push on it this way and you do it, it is possible to break it off. And since when these get installed into an end like this, they have to be inserted into the slot and then twisted with a pair of needle nose pliers, and you're sort of pushing down on it and then twisting it, and it's going to rock around some. And, you know, again, it goes back to, I understand how to do this, but other people, it's the first, last, and only time they're ever going to do it, and so they don't necessarily know to be as careful as they should be, and I thought the little locking ears were probably a weak point in the design. So we'll put those aside, and now we'll bring out version number 3. Version number 3 is new and improved. So what Nicholas did, I sent him a picture of the first revision, and I suggested that the little locking ears be reinforced and made larger and stronger than what they were in this version. And what he came up with was he made them, instead of being little straight arms that stick out, now we have little triangular arms that stick out. So we have more material at the top. It's kind of beveled down, which is kind of nice. It makes these really, really, really strong. These are not going to break off. I cannot break them off with my finger. I would have to grab them with pliers and really wrench on them to try to do that. This seemed as if it would be the final version. Earlier today, when I was setting up to make this video, we'll put these aside for a second. That's where these come in. This is a set of NuTone tubes, because what I intended on doing was putting together a set of 4 tubes. I know I have 5 here, but that's okay. I was going to choose 4 tubes to create a set, and I had earlier today taken an 8-note chime bass, very similar to the one that Lucy has from about the same period. I did a quick service on it. It's a used unit, as they all are, so it would work well, and I set it up over there on our testing jig. What I intended on doing was doing the first part of the video, which you've just watched, and then showing how to install these on a set of tubes, and then putting the tubes on the chime bass that I serviced and ringing it to show that it works properly. That whole plan kind of went awry. What I discovered was, and one of the things that you have to think about is, I've been doing this kind of stuff for almost 40 years. I've been at NuTone Service Center that long, and I've worked on all kinds of things, all kinds of chimes. You reach a point where you think you've seen it and done it all, and then something new pops out that never really had come up before, or if it had, you simply don't remember it. What I found was, in my creating my set of 4 tubes, I don't think that was one of the 4, I think it's these 4. Let me look and see. Yeah, actually it should be like that. Because longest, next shortest, shortest tube. This is the odd man out here. I was going to practice putting these on the ends of the tubes, even though I've done it before, because when you make the video, you want it to all go as seamless as possible, and if you do it, then you've done it recently, so it just is better. What I found was on the very first tube I took, which I don't remember, it was one of these two, I don't remember which one. I went ahead and put the hanger in the end of the tube here and put it in and twisted it, and it fit properly, and that was all really great. And I thought, that's wonderful. Then I went to do the second one. Here's the end, the plug from the second tube. And I went to put this in, and it went through the slot, and we'll do a close-up on this in a bit. Wiggled it into the slot like that, and went to twist it, and I don't know, you may not be able to see this, but it wiggles around. It's not locked in place like it's supposed to be. It's loose. And I thought, that's weird. Why is that like that? So as a comparison, we'll take the hanger from tube number 1 and we'll put this in. And we actually need the needle nose pliers to twist it. So now it's locked in place and I'm wiggling the bottom. It'll move just a little bit, but it's plastic and metal, so what do you expect? But it's not really flopping around. It's bending. It has a little bit of flexibility to it, but it's not flopping around like it did in the other one. And I thought, that's kind of weird. Why is that like that? Because that's not at all what I expected. And then I took tube number 4 and tried a hanger in the end of it, and it was loose. And I tried one in tube number 1, and it was loose in it also. And I thought, that's really weird. So I figured I would take a look and see why. So I did what any good service center guy would do, is I took the plugs out of the ends of the tubes, which is actually easy to do. It turns out that the thickness of the metal in this one is nearly twice as thick as the thickness of the metal in this one. Why is that? Well, it's hard to say exactly, but I would assume, just based on how the world really works, that this one, which probably came out of that tube, I don't remember which tube it came out of, but this one is probably older than that one. And why do I think that one's older? Well, because in the real world, when they came up with the design that uses these, this would have been a new design also, the plug that went in the end of the tube. And so they made it out of thick metal that was really heavy and really super sturdy and all of that, because that's what you do when you make a new design. However, later on, at some point, somebody said, probably some accountant, because we all like to blame the bean counters in the world for everything. Somebody said, hey, we don't really need to make that metal piece so heavy because it's not really doing a whole lot. So if we make it out of thinner metal and we redesign the hanger a little bit, it'll be the same, and we'll probably save a penny per tube, and pennies add up and all that sort of stuff. And that is sort of the way the world works a lot of times. So one tube has a heavy plug and the other 3 tubes have thinner plugs. The thinner plugs require a different type of hanger in dimensions. Now, I thought that was all really weird. So I did spend time, because I believe somewhere I have 1 or 2 original nylon hangers from back in the day. And I did look and look and look and look for them, and I could tell you exactly where they were in the shop before we moved from California, but since moving to Tennessee, I don't know where they are. I looked everywhere I could think of. I looked in all the little tubs. I know where they were, but they'll probably show up after I finish this video. So I decided that we needed to figure out why this was, and I found something very interesting. I found this. This is a page out of the NuTone Parts books. And this is the sheet for a NuTone model LD49 and the revised LD49N. N means new. And this part sheet is dated 1991. However, LD49s, the original versions, came out in the late 1980s. So sometimes part sheets are printed or updated after products come out. So that doesn't really make any difference in what we're talking about. But what I did find was this, which I find very interesting. We have 3 different nylon tube hangers. We have version A, we have version B, and we have version C. They're all part number 20. And at the end, I'll flip it over and look at the actual, because they have different part numbers. A and B are, well, let me do it now. There are 3 different part numbers, A, B, and C, because they're each uniquely different. This one shows a total length measurement of 1 49/64 of an inch, because, you know, that last 64th of an inch makes a big difference. C is 1 23/32 of an inch. So, you know, obviously much wider tolerance on this one than on this one here. In reality, these are almost exactly the same size. So little difference that I don't think it really matters. B has no measurement, but B is a hanger that I've never actually seen before. So this is the style that Nicholas copied, and this is the style that Nicholas copied, sort of. We'll get back to that in a minute. B is an entirely different style because instead of the tubes having a metal plug that gets pushed in and the hanger locks into it, this is a molded plastic plug, nylon probably, with the molded hanger as part of it, and this gets pushed into the tube and voila, you're done. I have never seen one like this, and I have a feeling that this wasn't made like that for very long, because I think one of the problems with this would be that this fits into the top of the tube in the area where the plungers pop out and strike the tubes, and I have a feeling that having plastic or nylon as a plug-in would maybe deaden the sound a little bit. I'm not sure about that, but it seems reasonable to me. So I've never seen a B version. A versions and C versions for you folks may look to be almost identical other than the total length of them. However, they're not. And if you look really carefully, if you look at the length of it between right in here, the top of the locking block to the little ears, the little tabs, here it's very short, and here it's almost twice as long. So this one, the A version, would be for the thin plug, and the B version or the C version would be for the thick plug, which I find very interesting. Now, if I go back and look at the part numbers, the A version has a part number that you see on a lot of chimes made later on. So it's, okay, let me see if I can explain this. Our theory that the original metal plug-ins, the thick ones, were the early ones when they didn't care about the cost, would use the C version with the long shank, and then they made the metal and the plug-ins thinner to save money, and then we had the short shank A version. Now you would think that the long shank one would be A because it was the oldest one, and the short shank one would be the C because it's the newer one, but that's not necessarily always the case. It could just be that somebody drew up the part sheet, drew the 3 in this order, and then put A, B, and C, because it doesn't really matter unless you're ordering parts, and if you're ordering parts, you're supposed to know what you're ordering. So, you know, I don't know. So you can't necessarily think it's oldest, middle, and newest, because I think it's really oldest, middle, and newest. I think it's backwards. So that's my guess. It's a reasonable guess based on everything I know about how NuTone actually does. Now that we've sat through all of that long explanation about things, this brings up some interesting challenges. We have 8-note long-tube door chimes with metal plug-ins of 2 different styles that require 2 different types of hangers that have different length shanks. So this shank fits the thick one, but it's too long for the thin one, which means that I have to go back to Nicholas, tell him that these are great. In fact, he's the reason that I'm actually making this video today about where we are with this in this whole project, so he can maybe better understand than me sending him some kind of email with pictures and arrows pointing at things. We need a revised version for the thin one, and I don't think he'll have a problem doing that because, as I said earlier, I think he's a clever boy. But this also creates another problem, because The intention of all of this is to have these available for people who need them. And that creates a situation of which ones do you need? Do you need the ones for the thick ends or do you need the ones for the thin ends? And trust me, people aren't going to know. It's too complicated. How do I know? How do I measure it? It looks like it's thick to me, but see, it's easy for me because I have one of each. So it's easy. Obviously, this one's thick and this one's thin. So that makes it easy for me. But if you only have one set, how do you know? Now, over time, if enough people request these, and we keep sort of track of the date of their chime, we can probably narrow down the dates of which ones use the thick ends and which ones use the thin ones. But right now, we don't really know that. So we have to come up with a way that we can help people who need these get them and get the right ones the first time, because nobody wants to do this thing where things go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So that's going to be a challenge. I have some ideas, but that's for another video. That's not for today. So this is where we are at the moment with our big idea of having replacement tube hangers for NuTone 8-note long-tube door chimes that use these. This does not apply to chimes that have cords that hang the tubes. That's a whole different thing, and I actually have videos that show how you replace the cords, tie them correctly, make them the right length and all like that, and I will put one of those pop-up things up here so you can go see that if that's the kind of tubes that you have. But at this point, I'm going to post this video and I'm going to send Nicholas an email so he can watch it, and then we'll work on what the dimensions are going to be and so on to sort out the length of the shank for the thin plugs. That's it. How's that? Long time. And you think that small manufacturing is easy. And this is the quintessential small manufacturing dilemma. As a friend of mine used to say, you're in the pit of success. You have a good idea, you have the ability or someone to work with to help bring the idea forward and make it something to help people. You run up against all of these unforeseen problems that you have to deal with and. So that's okay, because you have to persevere and work through the problems, because once you get it nailed down, once you get it figured out, then it's easy. You have things made, you put them out there, you help people that need them, and everybody wins. So that's all for today. I hope you found this interesting, and perhaps for someone it will be helpful eventually when we get all this sorted out. If it is, and it does, give it a thumbs up on YouTube, because that helps us just a little bit. There'll be a banner right here that shows you how to subscribe. Go to our YouTube homepage, click on the bell, and when you click on the bell, click on it to receive all notifications, and every time we post a new video, you'll get a notification and you can watch it. That's all for today. See you on the next video.